Before you lead other people, you've got to be able to lead yourself. I believe there are strong leaders in the world, and I feel like they're harder to find and recognize because there's more noise than ever before. If someone isn't a strong leader, they're going to be inconsistent. I feel like every business that isn't growing, the problems can usually be categorized as a problem in leadership or a problem in systems and processes. I don't know, between 15, 20 million in sales a year. US dollars, I don't know what that converts to in Australia.
Don't ask. It's Welcome to The Business Game,
a podcast that moves the needle. You know, Steve, I've been thinking, if I could clone myself, I'd finally get through my inbox.
Yeah, that's true. Or you could just call Tyler Offshore, right? They basically do that, but better.
True. They match businesses with top-tier remote talent, customer service, admin, even SaaS development.
Yep. Scale your team, cut your costs, and Kalina, keep your sanity.
And their people feel like part of your own team, just without the extra desks.
Yeah, exactly, right? Head to tyleroffshore.com to get your new superstar team member onboarded in just a week. Thanks to Tyler Offshore for supporting The Business Game. Hello and welcome to The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle. I'm Steve Plummer.
And I'm Kalina Steno.
Before we get started today, make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Today we're joined by Drew Norton, business coach and co-founder of The Everyday Leader. Welcome, Drew. How are you going?
I'm excited to be with you halfway around the world today.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us from Arizona.
Thank you.
All righty.
Yeah.
Drew, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah. So I love helping people. First off, I'm a business coach and sales trainer, and recently launched a men's organization that's launching soon. Excited about those things. I would describe what I do now as I like to help the me from 5 or 10 years ago. So I like to help the person, the things I used to struggle with. That's what I want to help people with now. A lot of that deals with sales, with hiring, some things in business, and also just supporting people in the ideas of leadership.
Yeah, cool. All right, that might be a good place for us to start our deep dive today, Drew. So I guess from all your experience, both personal and working with clients and businesses, what's the biggest bottleneck that you see most businesses having trouble breaking through it? And then how do they break through it?
Yeah, and I have kind of my niche that I work with, and so I'll speak more to that. But I usually start by looking at, I feel like every business that isn't growing, the problems can usually be categorized as a problem in leadership or a problem in systems and processes. And a lot of times the systems and processes could be a problem of leadership.
Yeah, combo.
And so, right. And so I think that's usually the first question I would ask is, hey, if things aren't working, how is the leader showing up? Secondarily, do we have good leaders in the organization? And then if those things are a yes, it's like, okay, what are the systems and processes and where things slowing down? So specifically, I love to work with businesses that want to grow sales specifically through their sales team, hiring, training, recruiting, selecting, and ultimately like growing through having a thriving sales team.
Okay. And so just to follow up on that, what does a good sales leader look like versus a great sales leader?
Great question. I think a good sales leader he's someone who's dependable. He's somebody who shows up. He's someone who, does the things he's asked. He models things to his team. And I think maybe what separates him from a great sales leader is he will do what's best for the people in his organization, no matter what, if that makes sense. That's easier said than done. I found, just to relate this back to myself, I found sometimes when I was looking for salespeople inside of the organization I used to be a part of and used to run, that sometimes I wouldn't share, I would hold back about the ways I could help people or the things I could do for them because I didn't want to come off as somebody that was, I don't know, prideful or too full of themselves. And sometimes I found like the best thing a leader can do is like, just be honest. And if you're the best and you can help someone, you tell them that. And if you can't, you don't. And so I think a great leader, they prioritize what's best for the people and the organization, and they're not afraid to say or do what's necessary.
Yeah. Sort of like a stripped back of the ego, right? Because the ego can kind of speak of like, oh no, like I'm going to think I'm too full of myself. It's like, this isn't about me. This is about my team.
Right.
I'm showing up for my team, and that's my role as a leader.
Yeah. And sometimes there's the opposite, right? Sometimes there's the person that's too big of their ego and thinks too highly of themselves.
Yes, and that's it's like removing that piece altogether. It's not about you, it's about showing up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So what's the process then, like when you have a business leader who's struggling with their team? What's the process that you would take them through to, one, analyze what's going on, where the kinks are, and then, let's say you discover that it's the leadership, and then as a result, the systems. How do you walk them through that to unkink?
Which is a technical term, right?
Yes, very technical.
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of times it starts internally. With sales in general, a lot of times what the mistake people make is, whether I'm a sales rep, whether I'm a business owner, is we look at something that's not working, and sometimes we just look at the symptom and not the root problem. It'd be like going into the doctor and having back pain and just asking for medication and not wanting to answer any other questions. Just give me the medicine. And a good doctor would hopefully ask you some questions and maybe help you realize, hey, the reason you have back pain is you've got some problems with your feet. And if we can fix your shoes, like, you're not going to have that back pain anymore. So I don't need to prescribe you painkiller. We actually need to give you some new shoes. Right. And that might seem like a funny analogy. And I think sometimes, for example, an organization might say, hey, we need to hire a recruiter to find salespeople for us. And the real issue is, hey, we don't have a clear culture that we can explain why we're better than any other company that sells the same thing that we do. And sometimes the culture is mistaken as like, hey, it's the break room. It's the slogan we put on the wall 6 years ago that no one remembers. Like, and what it really is like, hey, who are we? What do we talk about all the time? What do we value? How do we make sure our people know that, and that we differentiate ourselves by talking about those things at all the time?
Yeah.
Are there some, I guess, obvious or common red flags that you might see when you go into an organization? Well, this is happening, or this is not happening and not happening. So people who are listening can go, ooh, there's a little bit of that in my organization, or a couple of those things are happening when they shouldn't be. Have you got some tips there about what it looks like when it's not working so well?
Yeah, I think some of the things I hear, sometimes it's, hey, there's this feeling that there aren't good people out there. Like, hey, we've tried an ad before and there's no good people to hire anymore. Or that to me is a sign that, hey, we're actually not very good at attracting people. It has nothing to do with the talent that is or isn't out there. Which it's funny because there's actually, and if someone has a sales team, there's some study that shows, and I forget where this study comes from, but it's something like 55% of salespeople who are happy with their employer are open to looking at other opportunities. And I think that's interesting. And so the red flag there can be like, hey, you might have happy people that are looking, and if you can't find people, like, go talk to other salespeople and other sales organizations, because they might be looking for something else, even if they feel they're happy where they're at.
That's interesting. With salespeople, I'm interested. So when you when you're trying to talk to everybody, you speak to no one. So when you're training sales, do you look at the person and go, okay, let's hone in on your niche and who you speak to best and train them in that way. And same with like the leader, like when they're speaking to the different elements of their team, are they speaking to them for who they are, or are they just seeing them as a number? Like, how do you sort of shift that? Because I know that can happen a lot.
Yeah, I really like that question. And so I think part of it is, so I love to ask, what is it that you really sell? What is it that you really do? Like, we might think that, hey, I'm in the HVAC business, but I'm in the air conditioning business, but really you're in the comfort business, right? Or, hey, I might be in the, I've got a client, they actually do water pumps with solar for like agricultural use. And it's like, yeah, we provide water for cattle. That's kind of what we sell as a solution for that. And part of what their company language and what they want to talk more about as a company is like, we make life easy for ranchers and farmers. So I think one, it's getting like clear on, hey, what is it that makes us different outside of the product? And then to your question about, the niche, it's like getting really clear on who is it we serve, or who is our ideal client, and helping them find, hey, do we have that down? And the funny thing is, that's easier said than done. And I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh, I've got to do better at narrowing down my ideal client. But you're right. When you try to talk to everybody, you talk to nobody.
Yes. Yeah. But it's exciting because you go, but it's for everybody. Everyone can learn something from this,
Yeah.
But you're not going to get
help everyone.
Yeah. I know personally, that was something I had to learn when I tried to start my business. I was, Lendy's for everybody. And then we sort of didn't get the traction. And then once you shift that conversation to like, oh, it's for moms who need help with saving this. And it's like, okay. Yeah. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can we talk about in business, things break, and whether it's an example from I guess from your business or a client? I'd love to hear a story or some insights or some wisdom from a point where things almost broke, and how you went through a stabilization period, either self or with the client, and then the turnaround story. I'd love to just dive into some wisdom there from you in the trenches.
So I teach a framework, the 3 A's of leadership. And I think I'm going to talk about this first and then maybe give an example of that. One is, this can apply to a lot of scenarios, but it's that you acknowledge, you ask questions, and you make agreements. So I think sometimes when things break, we almost resist it too much, or we don't want it to happen, or we want to sweep it under the rug. And sometimes that's the worst thing you can do. Sometimes you've got to go and say to your team, to your people, to your organization, this is how it is. This is where we are. Like, acknowledge the situation and actually bring it to the table. And then ask some questions like, what can we do about it? Or maybe it's, if you're having a problem with an employee, it's like, hey, are you okay? Right? You keep showing up to work. Like, I'm going to acknowledge the fact that they're not performing the way they should. And then ask what's going on, or how do we fix this? And so you ask questions. And then lastly is make some agreements. We make agreements and we make it really clear of this is how we're going to do things going forward, instead of just having an expectation maybe that's not stated. Because a lot of times what will happen is we talk about a problem and everybody knows there's this problem, and we say, well, we got to come up with a solution. We don't have a clear agreement. And then everyone's upset 2 weeks later when we're still dealing with the same problem because there were no agreements made of this is how we're going to handle this forward. And we have a clear agreement in place of what that looks like. Actually, I've got a client that we just got done wrapping up. He was a one-on-one client, and they went through a big change in the company's technology, which seems to happen in bigger companies every 5 or 10 years. They couldn't even take payments from customers. It was so bad. Like they couldn't invoice people. They couldn't service people because of that. Yeah. And this is a big business too. This is a store that does, I don't know, between 15, 20 million in sales, a year. US dollars. I don't know what that converts to in Australia.
It's up to like 35-ish.
Don't ask. It's
Yeah.
it's ugly,
It's
right?
decent.
Anyways,
I'm squirming.
and he talked about how, hey, this was super challenging because it put me in a spot as the leader of everybody's losing their mind and doesn't know what to do. And I realized I've got to be the one who shows up, who's steady, who's consistent, who people can trust, who can say, and sometimes it's like, hey, I don't have all the answers, but he's like, hey, this is how we're going to handle it. This is how we're going to do things. We're going to do it this way. It didn't go perfect, but he got his team involved. They came to some agreements. Hey, corporate messed up on this technology, and they put a process in place and the team got through it. But it went back to those 3 A's, like, hey, this is where we're at. Like, there's nothing we can do to change this situation. We've got to acknowledge it is what it is. And he went to the team and said, hey, I don't have all the answers. Like, what do you guys think we could do here? Okay. And then they made an agreement and followed that. And I don't have all the details of how they handled all of that chain, but I know they worked through that process I taught them.
That's a great story.
Yeah. In your experience with that, of the 3 A's, is one of them, I guess, ignored or not lent into as much as the others? Yeah.
I would guess it's probably the agreements most often, that we acknowledge a situation or we ask questions about what we need to do. And I think there's different organizations that struggle with different parts. And so I think there's times where, hey, maybe for some it is they don't want to acknowledge it and they don't want to deal with the issue and they sweep it under the rug. Or they don't ask questions, but I think it's the agreements at the end of the day. That when you set really clear agreements, it just makes it easy to know this is what we're going to do when it works. This is what we're going to do when it doesn't. And a lot of times it just is this expectation. And I just have found agreements are so much better than just having expectations with your people, with your employees, with your team.
Do you think that there's a really common misunderstanding of how big and important the role of being a leader is?
I do. Yeah. So I co-host a podcast called The Everyday Leader, and we love talking about leadership. That's every episode's about leadership. We tie it to other topics.
Yes.
And I don't believe that leadership is necessarily a title or a position. There can be leadership that's associated with a title or a position. And I think everyone can be a leader regardless of their position or their role. And that leadership actually starts with you. And the first person you ought to lead is yourself. And before you lead other people, you've got to be able to lead yourself. And then once you do that, it's like, hey, then I can empower myself to help lead other people. And I think the best organizations, like, they empower their people to do that. They empower their people to, hey, be a problem solver, step up and take ownership of things. When there's an issue, like, don't say it's someone else's job to do that and shy away from it. Like, a great organization empowers their people to be leaders. And I think sometimes in business, we put too much on the role or the position as where all the leadership lies. And just because you have a title or a role doesn't automatically make you a great leader either.
Yeah, totally. With that, going back to the self and leading yourself first, is there anything in your personal story that you had to make changes where you went, okay, it's me first. These are some things I've got to do. I have done a little bit of research, so I think I might. If you don't talk about the thing that I found, I will bring it up, but I thought I'd throw it to you.
Yeah, you're not getting out of this one by the sound of it.
There definitely is, and we probably don't have time to talk about all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that the probably the biggest ones I feel like in my own personal life have been my own health and fitness, and probably just the way I prioritize my own family. Those would be the two biggest. There came a point where I was making great money, leading a really successful team. I was way overweight, and struggled with that like many people do, and just realized, like, hey, I don't have the energy some days to get up and play with my kids. Like, I'm 30 something years old, and it hurts every morning. My feet hurt every morning when I get out of bed. I had a lot of inflammation in my feet, and I like the outdoors, and started realizing, like, man, I go out in the outdoors and I go, I don't know, probably 20 feet. Maybe it was more than that, I'm sure, but I was winded and tired, and just started realizing, like, hey, the quality of my life is starting to be impacted by my health. And I always played sports growing up, and I was honestly super skinny in high school, but just made it a priority to get my fitness in check, and lost at one point up 100 pounds. I've put some muscle back on this last year and added some weight on purpose, and just have made that a big central part of my life. And the other I would say is my family. I think there have been times in my life, which is once again why leadership's important to me, where chasing something for myself has meant not prioritizing my family, prioritizing my wife and kids. And I think it's really common, especially if you're an entrepreneur, to be driven by the carrot, by the thing dangling in front of you. Salespeople especially are that way. They're very much driven by the
end of the rainbow,
the money, yeah. And I'm naturally that way. I love the dopamine that comes with a lot of that. And at times that meant, like, hey, I'm putting so much focus in work that my family gets what's left of me. And so to me, like, can I call it success if I make great money and I miss all my kids' plays and soccer games on the weekend, and not showing up for my wife in a way that's powerful? And so those are the two. I don't know if that was what you found, or if you found some other ones.
Yeah. Well, I think it's such an incredible story.
Those are the biggest ones for me.
Yeah.
So just on that, you mentioned the dopamine hit, and that is very hypnotic and seductive and alluring. How do you how did you, and then how do you, if others are listening, how do you unplug yourself from that? Because, the target, and I did it, and the target, and I did it, the target, and that whole cycle of chasing and getting is really enticing. And like you said, the whatever flows from that floats your boat. How do you unplug from that? Well, it's almost a mental loop, I guess.
Yeah.
How do you unplug from that?
Yeah, some of that actually happened without realizing how it was happening for me. It was like, hey, I was working on myself, and how do I make these things a priority? I think it's recognizing, and look, dopamine affects everybody, and I'm not a dopamine expert by any means, and I think it's replacing it with other things that will be fulfilling to you. So it's like, if you have for example, a lot of the things I used to like to eat, I've found just much better alternatives, like from a health standpoint, where it's like, I'm going to just make choices that I enjoy that aren't going to have the same negative consequences to me physically or mentally. It's like, I've come to, I like tracking my fitness. So I've worn a Fitbit for years, and I track my steps, and a lot of the little things in my health, it's like, there's great apps and technology that can help you track and get a little dopamine hit of watching, oh, hey, look at my weight. Oh, it's going up or down as I make these changes in my life. So I think I've seen, he's got some great stuff. His name's Chase Hughes. I don't know him personally, but I follow some of his content, and he talks about just mapping out your dopamine, figuring out where your dopamine is. And then, hey, when I go to my weaknesses, or when I go to what gives me dopamine, how do I take those big things and replace it with something else?
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting discussion for, like you said, for entrepreneurs and sales leaders, right? Because it's a real thing, right? That's what drives a lot of, and it's such a double-edged sword, because without that, you don't reach the target and create growth and all those sorts of things. But with it has a dark side to it as well. And so I think it's a really important discussion to have for people listening. Like, where is that kind of loop almost happening in my business, in my life? So yeah, I really like that.
Testing, 1, 2, hello.
Are we on?
Are we on? Hello.
Oh, hey folks, let's take a quick pause to talk about our friends at HubSpot. If you've ever felt like running marketing, sales and customer service all at once is, a little chaotic, HubSpot is here to change that.
It's an all-in-one CRM platform that actually works the way you think. From generating leads to automating follow-ups to helping your team stay aligned. Personally, I love how the automation tools handle the busy work so you can focus on the bigger strategy.
And here's the best part. You can start your HubSpot journey for free using the link in the description. And while you're at it, you're helping to support this podcast.
HubSpot isn't just a tool. It's like having a full team in one platform, helping you grow your business faster and smarter.
Alrighty, it's back to today's episode. Drew, can we zoom out a little bit with your leadership podcast and so forth? You mentioned you talk all about leadership. I've got almost a worldview type question. Is there a dearth or an absence of strong leaders in the world? Why or why not?
I believe there are strong leaders in the world, and I feel like they're harder to find and recognize because there's more noise than ever before, if that makes sense. So, and I feel like we're kind of with the age we're in right now of social media, where everybody has a platform, everybody has a voice. And the age of AI, where it's like content's being created and generated and it's only going to get crazier. I think people are craving more than ever authenticity, vulnerability, something that's real. And so I think when it comes to leadership, my opinion is that that's what I feel like people are looking for. That I don't just because you have a Ferrari and a helicopter on your Instagram page doesn't necessarily mean, and so look, I want one of those. I want a helicopter as well. And like, that's not what makes somebody a leader or an expert. Right. And so I think, yes, I think there are amazing leaders, and I think it's just gotten harder to find them. And the more authentic you can be, I think as we have more AI, as we have more content, I think what I'm seeing is that those people will naturally separate from the rest.
And that naturally then filters down into business as well, being authentic with your leadership within your organization.
Going into your personal journey as an entrepreneur, was there a decision or mistake you would go back and refine because it would have accelerated your progress a little more?
Yeah, I would say the biggest mistake I've made and different things I have done is thinking I can do it all on my own. There's, as an entrepreneur, I have a lot of other things I have done or seem to do. And so I'm constantly feel like I'm the dog saying squirrel, and chasing something. And at the same time, like, I recognize there have been times where I think, well, I'm just going to go do this myself because I'll make more or I'll do it better than if I have to figure it out with somebody else. And the opposite is it's always been the opposite of that. When I partner and work with the right people, whether that's in business, in a leadership role on a team, whether that's just a partnership with someone that we don't own a business together, it seems like when I partner with the right people, I go faster than I ever go when I try to do it on my own.
Yeah. And do you think that links to good communication from both sides? So, if you know what the vision is, I know that I've struggled with that in the past, where it's like, I just know what to do. I know how I want it to look. So if I just do it, it'll just come out a lot better rather than me having to sit here and talk and explain it to you. But if you just take that time, they can then execute it, and they might have better ideas too. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, no, I think communication's a big part of it. In fact, one of the partners I have that is worked really well is, I think, because two reasons. One, we have a very similar vision on the things we do with one another, and we communicate very well with each other. And actually, one insight I had the other day that I realized why this partnership with he's one of my best friends also, why it works so well is I'd like to think I don't have much of an ego, and there's probably work for me to do there. And like, he doesn't have an ego. And so I just recognize, like, hey, I think our partnership works really well because it's not about one of us making sure we get our thing. I feel like he's constantly looking out for me and I'm constantly looking out for him. And it's made that very successful.
Yeah, awesome.
Drew, you've got a saying, leadership creates freedom. What does that mean?
Yeah. Freedom's a big word to unpack. And, I used to think, first off, freedom I used to think was, hey, when you have time and when you have money, you have freedom. And I think there's some truth to that. But to go a little bit further, I think when you have someone who is a true leader, let me take one step back actually. And how I would define freedom is I've come to believe freedom is, hey, I can sit in silence and be happy. And so through that lens, a leader, because they're consistent, because they show up, because they provide a way, when you have a good leader, you're often not worried. That angst or worry will disappear and you feel free. And I say that because why I say freedom is like being able to sit in silence and not worry is there have been times in my life where, hey, I've been making really great money and I think, oh, I've got time or I've got great money, so now I should have the time. And then when I have free time, it's like, all I want to do is work and make more money. or sometimes the opposite where, hey, it's like, maybe I've got all this time, I should be able to use it and make more money. But if you're constantly spending your time worried about the next deadline, the next project, to me, that's not freedom. And so being able to find peace and silence, easier said than done, but like to me, that's true freedom, past time, past money. And so that's why I think leadership can create that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Sounds great.
Yeah. It's a really interesting phrase you use though, that I guess for team members and so forth, a good leader takes away the worry. You don't worry about things. That's a really interesting concept. And I guess that is it almost a challenge to everyone. Do we create that sense of, I guess, certainty and calm and peace in amongst the people that we lead? Really interesting question.
Well, and Steve, maybe let me give like an opposite of that, because sometimes I feel like the opposites paint the picture a little bit better. If you have a leader that you don't know how they're going to react when things go bad, like it's different every time. Things go wrong and you're like, hey, how's he or she going to behave this time? Are they going to flip their lid? Are they even going to show up? Or, oftentimes if someone isn't a strong leader, they're going to be inconsistent. And a good leader, you almost expect, hey, they're going to show up. They're going to have a plan. They're going to have a way to move forward. They're going to be steady. They're going to be someone I can trust. They may not know all the answers. And I know they're going to say, hey, here's where we're going.
Yeah. So with that, let's say you have a leader like you've just painted who makes people feel like they're maybe on eggshells when something's going wrong and they are, not consistent in their behavior. And so it makes it a little bit nerving for everybody around. How would you deal with that? Let's say they came to you and said, my staff suck. This isn't working. It's everyone else's fault. How do you approach that person? Because obviously they have a very narrow lens of who they are and how they present themselves in the world. So how do you open that for them?
Yeah, that podcast was your fault, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like, I just think that's interesting. Yeah.
No, it's a really good question.
Yeah.
Really good question. Yeah.
And I'm curious, when you ask that, whose perspective is that from? Like, is it from the employees, their leader, or
so let's say like there's a leader that is creating angst and like the performance of staff is sort of showing that things aren't working out and it's because of that behavior or that inconsistency. How would you as a leader coach deal with someone like that and go, or if one of our listeners maybe needs to hear, how would you deal with them and go, oh, like, no, it's actually like, let's turn that mirror. I'm just, have you ever had to deal with someone like that? And if so, how have you dealt with it? And if not, how would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think I'd go back to those three A's again. And I think a lot of times, if we're unhappy about something, whether that's in our life, in our marriage, in our business, with someone who's our leader, a lot of times, if we just can have a conversation that's productive, that can change everything. So it's like, how do we have those? How do we have a productive conversation? One thing that popped in my mind first off is if you have that leader, or if you have that, I almost don't even want to say leader. If you just have somebody that just the dictator that just tells you to do things, right? I love Chris Voss has a Chris Voss talks about the question. He wrote the book Never Split the Difference, really good. One way to just stop somebody in their tracks is you can ask them, how am I supposed to do that? Because it makes them stop and think. So that was just one thing that popped in my head. If someone's makes a ridiculous request of you, it's like, hey, how am I supposed to do that? Then they've got to like think through what they're actually asking you to do. So that's gold from Chris Voss. His content's amazing. But once again, I think it's like, hey, well, we need to acknowledge the situation. Sometimes people don't even realize the problems they're creating. And so you can point that out. And instead of like, what I've also found is really important is you don't want to label the problem. You don't want to label the person as the problem. If you do that, they'll get defensive. They will often respond poorly. But if you say, hey, this is what's going on, and this really doesn't work, or this really works, or this doesn't work for me, or this is working for me. That language I found can really help diffuse a situation. Hey, I want to acknowledge this is going on. Hey, that when you come in and you talk to us or talk to the team this way, it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is this is how people respond to that. You might ask, hey, is everything okay with you? Right? Your leader might be going through something stressful in their life. That might be why they're taking it about you. And so maybe you ask some questions. And it's like, hey, can we make an agreement that this is how, if you need me to do this, if you ask me to do something that takes 6 hours and there's only an hour left, can we make an agreement that this is how we will do it going forward? And so I've just found that if we're willing to have conversations with people, even if that seems scary or difficult, that if we use a little bit of language, we don't label them as the problem. If you say, hey, you always do this, you always do that, people just get defensive. Or if I say, hey, this doesn't work, this isn't working, that often neutralizes some of those issues.
Decision making, Drew, that's a big part of leadership. So
yeah,
how can leaders, sales leaders, or leaders in general of businesses, how can we all improve our decision making?
I say one, it helps to be really clear on who you are, knowing yourself, knowing what's important to you, knowing your purpose, what's our why, what's our mission, like, and use that lens in your decision making. Because if you don't have that figured out, that can make it tough. And that's probably not something we have time to go into all that just to answer this question. And I think what I've found is the best leaders, they don't take 3 weeks to make a decision. They say, here's what we're doing, and this is what we're doing, and we're going to go forward and move with that. Now, that doesn't mean they're always right. Sometimes they make a decision and it turns out that it's wrong. And it's only a problem if you don't learn from that or you don't pivot. And what I've seen, like oftentimes those that succeed in business, the entrepreneurs, the success overnight type of people, they're just the type of people that constantly, when they're faced with a challenge or a decision, they decide, they move, they act. Now, sometimes you don't see the 99 other decisions that they moved and it didn't go great, but they move. And if it doesn't go great, then it's okay. You decide and you learn and you move again. And so that's at least what I've seen, that a leader doesn't sit in indecision, because when you do that, you lose the confidence of the people around you when you can't make up your mind.
In that, when you're making these decisions, because it's very much an entrepreneur thing, which normally find themselves in a leadership role of some degree, when like they want things to move and they want it to be big and they want it to be big now or yesterday, like kind of thing. And so when they're making these decisions, is there a time period that they need to allow it to marinate and see if it actually tracks? Or are they like, if they're making a decision every day and changing because it's like, oh, it didn't work straight away. Like, is there time frames on that? It's not just around, yes, I agree with the decision making because that's something I think we all like really struggle with, is to just be decisive, but then also to allow that to play out so that you can actually say that did or didn't work.
I think so. And that's, the challenging part is there's probably so many scenarios. It's probably hard to say one thing for everything, one rule that works for everything. And maybe there's someone who has the answer to that. I'm very stubborn myself. Like, I'm the type that I make a decision and I'll almost write it down to like the captain writing down with his ship kind of thing. And I feel like that sometimes it takes that, like, hey, we're going to decide and be committed to it until we know it is working or isn't. And so I don't know what the perfect time frame is. But I think, to your point, you can't decide something new every day and expect it to work. I think you almost treat it like this is when I hired salespeople, especially if they were those that were coming into an entry-level sales position. I often would tell them, hey, you need to come into this and have a commitment like you're going to do this for the next 6 to 12 months. Now, there's a lot of times in sales, especially a commission-based salesperson, they're going to come in and they might learn in 30 days, hey, this isn't working, and it may not make sense to continue to do it for 6 months. But those that I found that came in with a mindset of, hey, we're moving forward, like this is the way, often did much better than those that said, hey, I'm going to try this for a few days and see how it works. So I think it's more being, hey, we're committed to this until we learn or have information that tells us differently, versus maybe a specific time frame.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Drew, if I was to come to you and go, look, Drew, what's some wisdom you can share? What things do I need? 2, 3, 4, 5 things to become a better leader, either a sales leader or a leader in my business. What would you tell me?
Yeah. If it's starting with yourself, just leadership in general, the men's group I mentioned that we're launching, the group's called Rise Up Men. It's going to be a group for men, helping them improve in their lives. And this is with one of my partners. 4 pillars I think that are really important is faith, family, fitness, and finance. Like, those are things you want to have in control, and you get control of those things and you take responsibility for those areas in your life, and you live a pretty good life if those things are all in order. In my opinion, I'm someone who believes in God, and my faith is very important to me. So I think that's just in life, willing to take responsibility in those areas. I haven't seen people live awful lives who take responsibility of those things in particular. And I think otherwise, though, it's a great leader is going to set a really clear vision for himself and his people, and they're going to talk about that all the time. This is where we're going. This is why we're doing it. This is why it's important, and it's big enough that others can get behind it and want to support that.
Alrighty. One of the things we like to do with our guests towards the end as we draw to a close, Drew, is to get to know them a little bit better. So we're going to fire 10 rapid fire questions at you and get you to answer them in a sentence or less. So it's just going to be bang, bang, bang. We'll take it in turns.
Don't think too much.
Yeah. All right.
All right, I'll start. Okay, all right. Go. What was your first job?
It was working in the fields, cotton fields.
Wow. What's your coffee order?
Weeds. I don't drink coffee.
Wait.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Android or iPhone? Android,
okay. Office or work from home?
Work from home.
Early riser or night owl?
Ooh, preferably night owl.
Okay.
One piece of tech you couldn't live without?
One piece of tech, probably a cell phone.
Your current go-to productivity hack?
Time blocking.
Ooh, that's a good one.
All righty. A business book or podcast you'd recommend to everyone?
Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell.
Ooh, okay. The best investment you've ever made, money or time?
myself.
Yeah, good.
All right. And if you weren't doing what you do now, what career would you choose?
I would love to fly planes. I got my private pilot license, and it would be fun to just do that all day.
All right.
Awesome.
Wow. Yeah, fantastic. All righty. Last big question, I guess. If business truly is a game, what's your definition of winning?
My definition of winning is when I win, others win, or when others win, I win. I got that backwards, but yeah, I'm winning when those I do business with win too. And to me, this is just the way I see life and the way I believe in things. Like it's not worth doing if it's not going to help other people win.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, Drew, thank you so much for your time. It's been really enlightening, a lot of fun as well. And now, if viewers, listeners want to find out more about you and your company, where can they go online?
Yeah, you can go to theeverydaysalesleader.com, or if you search for The Everyday Sales Leader on most of the platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, I'm on all of those.
Awesome.
All right, fantastic.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Drew. That's all we have time for, folks. Wherever you're listening from, thanks for joining us here on The Business Game. We'll see you next time. All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.
For more insights, strategies, and stories to help move the needle on your business, we'll meet you back here on Thursday.
Thanks for tuning in to The Business Game.
If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected.
A big thank you to our major sponsor, Tyler Offshore, for powering today's episode.
And join us again on the next episode of The Business Game,
A podcast that moves the needle.